I don't know how long I'll be able to keep my eyes open. It's 3 in the morning, and the sound hasn't stopped. Hollow raps echoing through the bones of this house, like someone hammering their knuckles into the front door. I've lost count of how many times it's come. But it started at exactly midnight, and not once has the door been empty when I opened it. The thing is, every time I looked, there was nobody there. But I swear to you, someone has been inside my home all along. The first knock came while I was watching TV in the living room. It was soft, almost polite. 3 crisp taps. Duh, duh, duh. I figured it was a neighbor. Maybe someone's dog got loose. Or maybe old Mrs. Glenn from across the street needed help again. She'd been forgetting her medicine lately. But when I opened the door, the porch was empty. The street was quiet. The sodium lamps hummed overhead, casting that orange sickly glow. But no car, no figure, nothing moved. I shut the door and brushed it off. 10 minutes later, it came again. Louder, tuck, tuck, tuck. I looked through the peephole, no one. That was when I got the first shiver down my spine. The third time, I opened the door faster, hoping to catch whoever was screwing around. Again, nothing. But as I shut the door, something caught my eye. One of the picture frames in the hallway was tilted, just slightly. I froze. That frame had been perfectly straight earlier. I remembered because I'd straightened it myself just before sitting down to watch TV. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe I bumped it. Maybe the door shutting rattled it loose. But the pit in my stomach was telling me otherwise. That was when I checked the locks. Front door, back door windows, all secure. Still, the knocking continued. Every time, the same 3 sharp raps. No one at the door. By 1 o'clock, I was wide awake, pacing. I tried calling the police, but the line just rang, static buzzing in my ear. No dial tone, no operator. Just that strange hollow hum. I tried my cell. No service. 0 bars. That was impossible. I always had service here. That was when I realized the house felt wrong. Too quiet. No refrigerator. No creak of the settling wood. Just the knocking. Always the knocking. Toc, toc, toc. It was inhumanly consistent. Never frantic. Never impatient. A rhythm, like a clock. When I checked the house again, I found the second sign. The coffee mug I'd left on the counter had moved to the kitchen table. And there were 2 sets of footprints on the floor. Not muddy, not dusty wet. As if someone had stepped in from a rainstorm. But it hadn't rained in weeks. The next knock made me jump out of my skin, louder, shaking the glass panes in the door. I didn't answer this time. Instead, I sat in the dark, waiting, my ears straining for any hint of movement inside. And that was when I heard it. From upstairs.com, top, top, top. Not at the front door. Not anymore. At the bedroom door. I ran up the stairs 2 at a time, heart hammering, but when I threw the door open, the hallway was empty. No one there, just the smell of something faint and sour, like wet earth. Inside my bedroom, everything looked the same. The closet door was cracked open and in. I don't remember leaving it like that. By 2, I was trembling. I locked myself in the bedroom with a kitchen knife. My plan, if you could call it, that was to stay put until sunrise. But the knocking wouldn't stop. Sometimes it came from the front door. Sometimes the back. Sometimes the walls themselves. Every time I opened the door, checked, begged myself to stop. But some part of me had to see, had to know. And each time, there was nothing outside. But the house was changing. The furniture wasn't where I left it. Chairs were moved. Photos on the mantel shuffled. At one point, I found the dining room chairs stacked into a perfect pyramid, like some kind of shrine. And always, the faint smell of wet soil lingered. I caught it. God help me. I caught it. After another knock, I flung the front door open and stepped out onto the porch. That's when I saw it, someone walking away from the house. A man maybe. His back to me, dressed in dark clothes, tall and lean. Hey, I shouted. He didn't turn. I bolted down the steps, bare feet slapping the concrete. But the moment I reached the sidewalk, the man vanished. Not into the trees, not around the corner, just gone. When I turned back toward the house, my stomach turned cold. The front door was wide open, and every light inside was on. That was an hour ago. Since then, the knocking hasn't stopped. It doesn't matter if I open the door or not. It just keeps coming. Worse, I've noticed something. The pictures on the walls aren't mine anymore. They used to show family portraits, vacations, my parents. Now they show me. Me, asleep in bed. Me, eating dinner. Me, sitting on the couch watching TV. Every moment from the last week, captured in grainy black and white photographs. And the frames are still shifting, still changing. Each time I leave a room, when I come back, there's a new picture on the wall. The latest one shows me sitting here, knife in hand, writing this. It's louder now, shaking the walls. The rhythm hasn't changed, but it's heavier, as if whatever's knocking is growing stronger, closer. I made the mistake of looking out the window. There are shapes in the yard, not one man, dozens, all standing perfectly still. Faces obscured by shadow, waiting. I don't know how long they've been there. Maybe since midnight, maybe longer. The photographs on the walls are changing faster now. Each one shows me older, thinner, weaker, like years are passing in minutes. In the last one, I'm lying in bed, gaunt and pale, eyes wide open but lifeless. I think when I answer the next knock, that's what I'll become. The sound is coming again. Duck, duck, duck. I don't think it will ever stop.
I never believed in haunted houses. My wife Dana was the superstitious one, not me. She had rules: don't buy mirrors secondhand, never put shoes on the table. No old houses with histories. I always laughed it off. A house is just wood and drywall. But that was before we bought this place. Before I realized someone had been living beneath us all along. The house looked perfect on the listing: 2 stories. Wraparound porch, half-acre yard. Built in the 70s, recently renovated. The price was low, but the market was weird, and we didn't ask questions. Basement's unfinished, the realtor said, almost as if she were relieved. Just storage. Cement floor, low ceiling. Nothing special. Dana frowned. Does it flood? Not that I know of. We signed papers the next week. The first few nights were bliss. New paint smell, cardboard boxes everywhere, a mattress on the floor. Our cat, Whiskers, prowled the halls like she owned the place. But then I noticed things. Small things. The basement door, left open when I swore I'd shut it. A draft from the vent even when the AC was off. And Whiskers, she wouldn't go near the basement stairs. She'd arch her back, hiss and bolt whenever I carried a box down. I told myself it was normal. New house noises, settling. But the noises didn't stop. It started around midnight, the third night in. I woke to the sound of scratching. Faint, but steady. Long drags, like nails, across concrete. At first I thought it was a raccoon or rat in the walls. I sat up, listened. The sound was coming from beneath us. The basement. I grabbed a flashlight, crept downstairs, and opened the door. The smell hit me first: damp earth, like a root cellar. I shone the light down the steps. Bare cement floor. Piles of boxes. Nothing moved. But the scratching stopped the moment I opened the door. I went down, checked the corners, even tapped the walls. No rats, no holes, nothing. When I came back up, Dana stirred. What were you doing? Just checking something. You were down there a long time. I hadn't been, though. Maybe 5 minutes. The next week was chaos: unpacking, trips to Home Depot, arguing about curtains. But something kept nagging at me. Things went missing. Not big things, just little items. My phone charger, a fork. One of Dana's sweaters. At first I thought they were buried in boxes. But when I started finding them in odd places, my stomach turned. The charger was under the couch cushion. The fork was on the basement steps. The sweater was crumpled at the bottom of the basement door. Dana thought I was pranking her. I thought maybe she was pranking me, but neither of us laughed. And then came the smell. Not damp earth this time. Something sour, metallic, like spoiled meat. It drifted up through the vents at night. I set up a camera. Just a cheap baby monitor we hadn't even unpacked yet. Pointed it at the basement door. I told myself it was to catch raccoons or whatever vermin had gotten in. But deep down, I think I already knew. The first 2 nights, nothing. Just shadows. The third night I woke at 3 a.m. to a notification. Motion detected. I opened the app. The screen showed the basement door, closed, quiet. And then, the door handle turned. Slowly, smoothly, the door opened. Something came out. I couldn't see clearly, just a tall, thin shape moving on all fours. Quick and silent, into the kitchen. The camera's infrared made its skin glow pale. It wasn't a raccoon. It wasn't a rat. It was a man. I didn't tell Dana at first. What could I say? Hey honey, there's some guy living in our basement. She'd pack her bags that second. I convinced myself it was a glitch, a trick of the camera. But I couldn't unsee the way he moved. The way his head cocked toward the lens, like he knew I was watching. The next morning, Dana said, "Someone's been in the fridge." What? The leftovers are gone. And the milk's half empty. I played dumb, but I knew. That night, I locked the basement door. Actually locked it, with a padlock I bought at the hardware store. At 2 in the morning, I woke to the sound of rattling. The basement door. And underneath, a low voice, whispering. I couldn't make out the words. I couldn't take it anymore. The next day, while Dana was at work, I went down there. I armed myself with a hammer, phone flashlight on. The smell was worse, overwhelming. I followed it to the far corner, behind stacks of old moving boxes. There, against the wall, was a hole. Not a crack, not a leak. A tunnel. Wide enough for a man to crawl through. Dirt, freshly dug, the edges clawed raw. Inside, blankets. Rusted cans. A nest. And on top, a photo. Dana and me. Sleeping in our bed. I called the police. They searched, found the tunnel led into the storm drains beneath the neighborhood. They didn't find the man. Probably a vagrant, the officer said. Squatters use tunnels all the time. You're lucky it wasn't worse. Lucky. Dana wanted to leave that night. We can't stay here. He could come back. But I told her we'd be fine. I'd padlocked the basement. The cops said they'd patrol. We tried to sleep. But, at 3 in the morning, the knocking started. Not at the door. Not at the windows. From beneath the bed, knock, 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 knock. I'm writing this from the closet. Dana's gone. She ran when she heard him crawl out. I should have run too, but I can't move. He's pacing outside. His footsteps, soft, deliberate. Every so often, he whispers my name. Eric. That's how I know this wasn't random. He knows us. He's been here longer than we have. This was never our house. It was his. And he's come back to claim it.
I've always hated the way my house feels at night. It's not old, it was built in 2004. A plain 2-story suburban place, with beige siding and an attached garage. But when it gets dark and the lights are on inside, all those big windows turn into mirrors. Every movement I make is reflected back at me, and I can't see a thing outside. That's why I saw it so clearly, the first face pressed against the glass. It started a week ago. I was up late in the living room, scrolling my phone while my baby, Harper, slept upstairs. The house was quiet. Then, something flickered at the edge of my vision. When I looked at the sliding glass door that leads to the back patio, my stomach dropped. There was a face, pale, pressed against the glass from outside. The eyes were wide and unblinking. The mouth stretched into a grin too wide for the face. I jumped up, heart pounding, and grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp. But when I blinked, the glass was empty. Just my own reflection. I checked the locks, turned on the patio light, and looked outside. No one there. I told myself I was over, but I didn't sleep that night. The next night, it happened again. This time at the kitchen window. I was washing a bottle, hands in soapy water, when I felt that same flicker of movement. I looked up and nearly screamed. The face was back right there, pressed to the glass. Same pale skin, same dead eyes. But it was closer this time. I dropped the bottle, shattered glass cutting my hand. By the time I looked back, it was gone. I ran outside with a flashlight, checked the yard, the fence, the street, nothing. But when I came back in, the kitchen light flickered. Just once. On the third night, Harper wouldn't stop crying. I tried everything, feeding, rocking, singing. Finally, I laid her down and turned on the baby monitor, hoping she'd cry herself to sleep. I sat in bed, watching the tiny screen. Harper's crib glowed in the infrared, her little arms flailing. And then I froze. There was something else in the frame. A face. Not in the crib, not beside it, behind her, pressed to the window, watching her. I ran into her room so fast I nearly ripped the door off the hinges. The window was shut, locked, empty. But Harper was wailing, staring at the glass. I called the police the next morning. The officer who came was polite but skeptical. Could be a prank, he said. Someone messing around. Any teenagers in the neighborhood? No, I said. This isn't a prank. I saw it. He made a note. We'll patrol the area. But if you see anything else, call us. That night, the patrol car did drive by twice, but the face didn't appear. Not until after midnight. When it did, there were 3 of them. All pressed 2 different windows. All staring in. Tried to take a photo. When the faces appeared at the living room windows, I raised my phone and snapped a picture. My hands were shaking so bad the flash went off. The faces vanished instantly. But when I looked at the photo, my blood ran cold. It showed my reflection in the glass. Just me. Except, my reflection wasn't holding a phone, and the smile on its face was too wide. I barely slept for days. Every night, the faces came back. Sometimes one, sometimes more. Always pressed to the glass, unblinking. I started covering the windows with sheets, blankets, cardboard, anything. But no matter what I used, by morning the coverings were down, neatly folded on the floor. On the 5th night, I found muddy footprints leading from the back door to Harper's crib. The door had still been locked. I'm writing this now from Harper's room. I've barricaded the door with furniture. She's asleep in my arms. The windows are rattling. The faces are back. Dozens of them now. Pressed against every pane of glass. Mouths stretched in identical grins. They're whispering. I can't understand the words, but I know they're calling to her. To my baby. The baby monitor is on the floor. Its screen glows. And in the feed, I see myself. Standing outside the window, smiling.
I used to think losing a house key was no big deal. When mine slipped off my ring somewhere, between the grocery store and the front door, I barely gave it a second thought. I had the spares. I changed the locks 2 days later just to be safe. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't, because someone still had a way inside. It started small like all these things do. A glass I knew I'd washed and put in the cabinet was sitting on the counter the next morning. The TV remote wasn't on the coffee table but perched neatly on the windowsill. My shoes were lined up in the hallway when I remembered kicking them off in the living room. Tiny things, easy to brush off, except for the smell. It was faint at first, like damp wool, seeping from the corners of the house at night. By morning, it was gone. But while I lay in bed, I could almost taste it in the back of my throat. And sometimes when I woke up, I swore I heard footsteps. Not heavy ones. Slow, padded. dragging across the floorboards like someone was careful not to wake me. The night it really hit me, I woke to the feeling of a blanket being pulled up over my chest. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The warmth, the soft weight of the quilt tucking under my chin. But then I opened my eyes. The room was dark, silent. The blanket was neatly in place. And I live alone. I didn't sleep again that night. I just stared at the door until dawn, wondering who else had touched me while I slept. I bought cameras, motion sensors. I set them up in every room, including one pointed straight at my bed. That night, nothing triggered. But in the morning, every frame in the hallway had changed. The pictures weren't mine anymore. Not my family, not my vacations, not the dog I grew up with. Each photo showed me sleeping, me cooking dinner, me brushing my teeth. I don't remember anyone taking those pictures. The next night, the hallway light clicked on by itself at 3 a.m. Through the crack in my door, I saw a figure pass by, tall, lean, shoulders hunched, moving slow. I sat frozen, barely breathing as the floorboards creaked. Then it stopped outside my room. The doorknob turned, just slightly, and then 3 soft knocks. Like it was asking permission. I didn't answer. When I finally opened the door an hour later, the hallway was empty, but on the floor was my lost key. Things got worse. One morning, I woke to find every mirror in the house covered with bed sheets, neatly tucked around the frames like someone wanted to hide the reflections. Another time, I found my toothbrush wet before I'd used it. The worst was the bathroom. I pulled back the shower curtain and nearly collapsed. Someone had scrawled words across the tile in what looked like condensation. Though the air was dry, "Thank you for letting me in." That was when I knew changing the locks hadn't mattered. The key wasn't just for the door. I stopped sleeping, but when I stayed awake, the house shifted. Doors that should have opened to closets led to rooms I didn't recognize. Narrow hallways with peeling wallpaper, staircases that ended in dead walls, windows that looked out on nothing but black, and the smell, that damp wool stronger now clinging to my skin. On the cameras, I started seeing glimpses. Just at the edge of the frame, a hand slipping out of sight, long fingers curling around the wall. And once, while watching playback, I saw myself walking past the kitchen at 2:46 a.m., but I know I never left the bed. I don't know if I'll get to finish this. The knocks have started again, not just at the bedroom door, at every door, every wall, every window. A chorus of polite, patient knocking, asking to be let in. The frames on the walls are changing faster now. They show me as I am sitting here, writing this, the reflection of the screen glowing in my eyes. In the nearest one, I'm not alone. Someone is standing over my shoulder, smiling, but I think I understand now. The key I lost didn't just open a lock. It opened me. They've been here the whole time, waiting, and I just let them in.
Used to pass the place on my way to work every morning. A sagging 2-story house at the edge of the cul-de-sac. Shutters crooked, paint blistering off in scabs. I never saw lights on, never heard voices. Just silence. But in the upstairs window, always stood a mannequin. White plastic face, blank eyes. Sometimes dressed in a hat or scarf. Sometimes bare, but always there. Staring down at the street as though it had been waiting for someone. I should have known it was watching me. It began the night I found something on my porch. A mannequin's hand. The fingers were curled, almost lifelike. Chipped at the knuckles where the plastic had been sawed through. I figured it was some dumb prank. Neighborhood kids. I threw it in the trash. The next morning, it was back sitting neatly on my doormat. Palm up, like it wanted to be shaken. That was the first time, I thought, someone's been on my porch while I slept. Things inside my house started moving. Not stolen, not broken, just rearranged. My coffee mug turned upside down on the counter. A pair of socks folded neatly in the bathroom sink. The couch cushions stacked like bricks against the wall. One night, I woke to the faint scrape of something being dragged across the hardwood. When I checked the living room, the coffee table had been turned completely upside down. But there was no one there. At least, no one I could see. The mannequin in the window had changed. Not just its clothes, its position. Its head was turned, tilted down at the angle of my own bedroom window. That night, I dreamed of plastic feet creaking on my floorboards, stiff knees bending with unnatural effort. When I woke, the smell of dust and fabric glue clung to the air. It was 2:13 a.m. when I heard the front door creak open. The sound was soft, hesitant, followed by the click, click, click of something hard against the floor. I grabbed the bat I keep beside the bed and pressed myself into the hallway shadows. And then I saw it. Not a man. Not exactly. A mannequin, but wrong. Taller than the ceiling would allow. Its body bending in impossible hinges as it hunched through the hall. Its smooth face had been painted crudely with lipstick and trembling smiles smeared across white plastic, lashes drawn like scratches. It didn't see me. It just walked. Stiff, methodical, dragging its hands along the walls, leaving pale streaks of dust. And then, as if it had accomplished something, it let itself out. The door shut gently behind it. I tried to tell myself it was a hallucination. Sleep deprivation, stress. Until the photos showed up. I found them tucked under my pillow. Glossy prints of me sleeping. Dozens of them. My face slack with dreams, mouth open, limbs in every one, there was a mannequin in the background. Sometimes by the door, sometimes at the foot of the bed. In one, its face was inches from mine. By the end of the week, I couldn't move without finding a mannequin piece left behind. A foot in the bathtub. A torso slumped on the couch. A head staring from the refrigerator. Each one painted differently, lips drawn wide. Cheeks scrawled with rouge, eyes rimmed with dripping black. But the faces, they all looked vaguely familiar. Too familiar. Because each one resembled someone I knew. My mother, my coworker. The girl I used to date, their likenesses carved into the plastic with clumsy paint, almost childlike in execution. And then one morning, I found one that looked like me. The next time I passed the house on the cul-de-sac, the window was empty. No mannequin. When I got home that evening, one stood in my own window. Perfectly still, watching the street. That was when I understood. I hadn't just been invaded. I'd been chosen. The mannequins moved freely now. I stopped locking the doors, because it didn't matter. They were already inside. Their stiff limbs groaned in the darkness. Scraping across the walls, bumping into furniture. I could hear them breathing, though I knew they had no lungs. I tried to stay awake. But sleep came anyway. And when I opened my eyes, the mannequins stood in a circle around my bed. Dozens of them. Each face painted with grotesque care, each smile wider than the last. They leaned close, their joints creaking, their fingers tapping gently at my chest, my arms, my face. One of them slipped a plastic hand into mine, as if guiding me. And then I realized. I couldn't move. My skin was stiff, my joints heavy. My mouth wouldn't open to scream. I tried to lift my hand, but it wasn't flesh anymore. It was smooth, hollow, painted with a smile.